We are committed to creating a safe and supportive space for our guests and listeners, and to provide information and tools that will help our listeners understand, manage, and overcome trauma. We understand that the healing journey can bring up challenging emotions. Therefore, we want to warn our audience that certain episodes may contain discussions or stories that could be triggering for some individuals. The content of the podcast is for educational and informative purposes only, and we encourage you to practice self-care and discretion while listening, and to reach out to a trusted support system or professional if you feel overwhelmed and need help on your healing journey. Hello, and welcome back to Healing and Growing Hand in Hand podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Tickle, and our guest today is Dr. Luisa Caprano. And I'll tell you a little bit about her. It's very impressive, actually. She is a high-risk pregnancy specialist and a successful entrepreneur who's overcome shocking captivity and abuse at the hands of her father. She is an author of a book entitled Push, Then Breathe, Trauma, Triumph, and the Making of an American Doctor. And there's a quote she had put down in her paperwork she sent to me that I really, really liked, and I wanted to share it with you. And it says, as a trauma survivor, I am blessed to say that I have overcome my past, my abuser, and my self-inflicted limitations. So welcome, Dr. Luisa. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. I'm humbled and honored to be here. I'm very, very excited to be in your show, but also I'm looking forward to share my story and hopefully, one person, one human out there will benefit from the story and from my journey and from its teaching.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was saying just before we got on the recording that, I share my story, my stories, my many, many stories in my life. And it's really to help others connect, so I think everybody that comes on and shares their own personal story, because it's not always easy. And it took me a long time before I could really just share my whole story and not be covered in shame, that the shame really shut my voice down.
I completely agree.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey.
Okay. Um, so as you correctly pointed out, I am a high risk pregnancy physician, but I came to the United States from former communist Romania 37 years ago.
Mm.
I came on a 2 months visit, and I came to visit my father, who I barely knew. Um, and my plan was to, come visit a little bit of America, get to know who I got the other half of the DNA from, and then go back home, take my medical school admission exams, and go to medical school and become a physician. Um, and things didn't pan out that way. What I had my plans and what my father had in his plans were two completely
Mm.
uh, parallel, if not divergent, plans here. So
Let me
when I
ask you how,
came,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but how old were you when you came over for this visit?
I was 18 years and 11 months to the
Okay, you're
dot.
so young. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a month shy of being 19. Um, and you mentioned, how long it takes to be able to talk about it, but
Hmm.
also, up until that time, I had a very blessed life in Romania. Outside being in a communist country and having its own trials and limitations and tribulations, but I was, always, always surrounded by love.
Mm.
I was, always supported. My mom and my grandparents raised me, and my book has three different parts to it. The first part is my life in, as I grew up in Romania, and then the second part is when I came to the United States, and the entire shock and the entire really saga that happened to me. And then the third part is how I overcame, how I escaped, and how I moved on. And, it culminates with me graduating from medical school, actually, the day of my graduation. But to just go back a little bit, I think I'm going ahead of myself here. I am a high risk physician, high risk pregnancy physician. I am a trauma survivor. I am also the founder and CEO of two enterprises. One is Telemed MFM, which is a telemedicine practice with providing high quality care to pregnant women, regardless of borders and geographical limitations. And also Dr. Luisa Foundation, which really was started in in a desire to empower women everywhere. So this is me on the professional side, but really outside that, I'm a mother of two beautiful sons, wife of a former fire chief, and the daughter of the most amazing woman in this whole wide world, which always has been by my side, whether physical or emotional and spiritual, from miles and miles away. And without her, I would have probably never been here.
Mm, what a sweet message.
Yeah.
So, 18 years old, you're coming over to the United States. Never been here before. And
Nope.
had you met your father before?
So I did meet my father twice. One when I was 2 weeks old,
Don't remember
um,
that.
and the other one I was in kindergarten.
Mm.
He came by to visit me, and he was, unbeknownst to me, he was getting ready to defect Romania, and he came to see me. The the visit, I remember it vividly, which
Mm.
is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he actually wanted to give me a pen, a fountain pen. Okay, I went to school and I learned and I studied with fountain pens, not with regular pens that we have here, the automatic ones. So he had a pen he wanted to learn me with, I guess. And I told him flat out, I said, my mom has one just like that. So I didn't take it. I don't think he liked that because he turned around and left.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, but yes, I only saw him twice. And before I came here, when I came to the United States, I didn't speak English. I
Mm.
only spoke Romanian, French, and German. I had no family whatsoever. He was here uh, by himself at that time. He remarried really after he left Romania and had another child with the second wife, but then the second wife left him as well. So he was alone
Mm.
um, with a cat, and who, by the way, became my sole companion, life companion for 6 years and 8 months. So I came to the United States. I came, like I said, to meet him, to see who he is. I was very determined to go back home, really. I mean, he was a stranger to me, right?
Yeah.
And about a couple of days to maybe I say 5 days after I arrived, um, we really were at the dinner table. And he said, well, now that you're here, we got to start working on having you stay here. And I was like, oh, I'm not sure what you're talking about.
That
Like, what are
wasn't
you
my
talking
plan.
about? I mean, imagine, right? Here I am, an 18-year-old that never been outside my cocoon. I am
Yeah.
with this man, which again, he's supposed to be my father. He's supposed to take care of me for these 2 months, who I'm supposed to
Mm-hmm.
trust. And then he drops this. So I said, no, that's not possible. He became very irate and very angry, which gave me this, feeling that something is really not right here.
Mm-hmm.
And we left it that way. I went to bed. He did, he went to bed, to his own bed. And then a few days later, he brought it up again. And, everything was very um, on pins and needles, to say. I had no way to go home because, again, I didn't speak any English. I could not communicate. I could not change my flights. He made those
Oh.
reservations, the flights, so he would have had to call. So within that first month, um, my passport, he took my passport away. And then he continued to try to make me stay. And when he could not do that, uh, then he moved on to more forceful ways. So, rape, physical abuse, mental abuse, everything just came like one after the other. And really, when I think of those days, I always liken them with the 7 stages of grief. When people are given their very finite time on this earth, um, that's really how they must feel. First is shock. Like, are you kidding me? This is what is this coming from, right? What is this happening here?
Yeah.
This happened on my birthday,
Oh.
on my 19 years old birthday.
Oh.
Um, and when we talk about shock, then it's denial. I was like, the next day, I'm like, I'm just having a bad dream. I
Yeah.
will wake up out of this. And you
You don't
realize
want to
that
believe that. You don't want to
no,
believe that that just happened.
exactly. And like, no, this is not happening, this is a bad dream. And then as I realized that no, this is not a bad dream, because it's happening again and again. Then I just become very angry, and angry because I believed in this person, I trusted this person. And then is this in our minds, is this just kind of tug of war? I'm like, well, what do you mean I can trust this person, but he's my father?
Yeah. Yeah. It's very
So it is
confusing.
extremely confusing. And again, but a young mind like that, you can't
Yeah.
understand. It's like, what is happening here? And then you start thinking, okay, how am I going to get out of this? And then we start bargaining.
Mm.
And the bargaining is, what can I do to make this go away? What can I do to start over again?
Yep.
So then you start grasping. We start grasping at straws to find the way out. Um, so he promised me two things if I would stay, because there was no way in hell I was going to stay.
Yeah.
He promised me that he will remarry my mom, and he will bring her here, and we will be a family again. And he also promised me the second most precious thing in my life. It was my dream to become a doctor. I
Mm.
always wanted to become a doctor since I was a fifth grader. So, remember bargaining?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I believed him again. And I said, okay, I will stay. So we went to, to the immigration, and I put in for a political asylum as he requested. And then that moment, I became an enemy of the state of
Mm.
Romania. Why? Because when you put in for a political asylum, you invoke persecution.
Ooh.
Now, remember, I did not speak any English, so whatever was written in English was written by him. I had to sign. He changed my name
Oh my
as
gosh.
well. So we put down the application in Boston, and that very night we're at a dinner table. And I said, okay. So now when are you going to do the paperwork to bring my mom over? You know, he said, as long as I live, your mother will never come and live here with us.
Oh, that's got to be so frightening.
So that was so shattering to me. Again, we believe, right? I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to believe that this is going. I was going to be able to fix this,
Right.
and uh, it wasn't going to be fixed.
Mm.
So as I started going through these motions, I let my mom know that I cannot go back. Um,
Yeah, I
Became
was gonna
very
say,
depressed.
what was your mom doing in all this? Did she know that he had well, I don't think if she knew this that he had this propensity, she would ever have let you go come over. So she had no idea.
She had
So
no
what
idea.
was I can't imagine how frightening it was for her to be hearing from you and hearing this, and she's in another country. She
Hmm.
can't just fly over here and rescue
Correct.
you.
Yes. She didn't know, nobody knew. That was my biggest condition, that nobody will ever know what has happened to me.
Mm.
And I told her that I have decided to stay here to further my education and become a physician. Um, she knew something wasn't right, but I could never tell her because that would kill her. My grandparents, my grandfather became very ill, and later on passed away of pancreatic cancer. And my grandmother actually ended up going to the psychiatric ward because everybody was beyond themselves. Like this is
Oh.
this is not who I am. This is not Luisa, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for 6 years and 8 months, 2,422 days, I was just a tool. I was the subject of mental, physical, um, emotional abuse, total financial dependence,
Mm-hmm.
several abortions. Um,
Mm.
I did not, I was not allowed to have any friends. I was not allowed to socialize. I didn't have a car. The only being that was around me was my cat, the cat that he had, and she became my only companion.
Mm-hmm.
And I began accepting the fact that I wasn't going to go anywhere. That was going to be my life. The only thing was left to keep me sane. That was my desire to become a physician. And he promised me this. I started to taking some classes, like one or two college classes a year, and that even became a huge deal. Why? Because I didn't know, right? But he kept saying, the finances, we can't afford it. I'm like, I am not giving this up. I started working, got my real estate license. I was, he had his own real estate company,
Mm.
excuse me, but I was running his company. I was working in a grocery store as a cashier, and later on as assistant manager. So I was making money, but I didn't have any money. I was allowed to have $1 a week. And that was my allowance. I had no credit. I had no bank accounts. The checks were signed over on his name and deposited. And the only thing that was left, like I said, was hope. Was hope that I will take these classes and I will go to medical school and I'm going to escape this hell.
Escape. Yep. I was just gonna say you would escape. Mm-hmm.
Yes, but you see, Lisa, people have to remember their. Imagine if I take you and I drop you in a country tomorrow, but we go on vacation there, right? But then that very day that we get there, I take your passport, that country, you do not speak that language, and
Mm-hmm.
just leave you there with pretty much nobody, or a person that only I know, but you don't know, so you will just have to trust that person.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know the system.
Yeah,
I did not know the
exactly.
system. He told me that I could, yeah, it is technically, and they gave me papers. Yeah, technically, I can get into medical school without an undergrad degree. Technically, yes. Well, technically, I probably could go in my lifetime to the moon too, but
Yeah.
practically. So I started taking classes, my undergrad classes. I and obviously one or two a year. It wasn't going to like one class a semester, two classes a year. Wasn't going to take me too far, but that was my hope. That was the straw that I was hanging,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise, probably something really really bad would have happened.
Yeah. Yeah. That was your hope. That was what was keeping you hanging on. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
That and your cat.
And 59 seconds a week with my mother on the phone. So that was another thing that I could not let go. And I refused to let go. And I said, every Sunday I will talk to my mom. Well, of course, he invoked money again. I didn't know have money. We don't know. I don't want you to spend money. So I became like, I had PTSD from even from making a phone call. Like Sunday morning, I would be in bed and I would all of a sudden, as 10 o'clock would hit, I would start shaking, like cold sweats. My heart was racing. It's like, I started to think, like, what is wrong with me?
Mm-hmm.
Then I started thinking, I'm like, that must be because I am already anticipating what's going to happen. The fact
Mm-hmm.
that I have to make a plea to make a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
So why 59 seconds?
Yeah. Why 50? That's what I was thinking. Why 59 seconds? Why not 60?
So why? Because if at that time in the past, if you call 59 seconds and you hang up, you can then at the end of the month call the telephone company and then ask credit for it because the call dropped.
Yeah. Wow.
I bet you money you hear a lot of things, but you never heard this one.
I have not heard that one. I know that to be true though. I don't know why I know that to be true, but that is true. Back in the day that did happen, and the fact that he knew that,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. And every month at the end of the month when we would get the statement, I would have to make those calls to get a credit so he doesn't have to pay for it. He was very paranoid. He always thought, but it was very interesting that his paranoia, like, kind of damn if you do, damn if you don't. So if it would be that somebody would praise him, then you'd be like, oh, wonder what's his ulterior motive. And
Yeah.
if somebody would don't like him, oh, I know why he doesn't like me, because he's working with the communists. I mean, there's things like he would put marks around the house to make sure that nobody gets into house apartment to make sure that
Oh.
nobody gets into his apartment. He would put um, sand or salt, like a very thin layer in front of the door, honey on the doorknobs. He would put a recorder, and that recorder would just keep going and going. Voice activated, that is, but the cat is inside. Every time the cat would move, that thing would keep going.
Yeah.
And then he would just listen to them for hours and be like, "Oh, listen to this." I'm like, "It's nothing." And
Sounds like
yeah,
he clearly
so
had mental illness. Some form
yes,
of mental
I believe
illness.
so. This is not a
Yeah.
normal
No.
thinking individual.
No. No.
So, how you may wanna say, when did this all end? Well, the way it ended was very interesting. In 1993, in October, I managed to go home for the second time since I was in the United States,
To Romania? To your
to
family?
Romania.
Eh, wow.
Yeah, he would let me go, but there are a couple of things. He would let me go very short times.
Right.
So about 5 days worth. Now, It takes me 24 hours to get there,
Yeah.
getting to my town. So by the time I'll be there, 2 days were gone. Then it takes me
Mm-hmm.
another 2 days to come back because I don't live in Bucharest. So I live in an outside town. So from the Bucharest, I have to take a train and then a bus and then go home.
Wow.
So he let me go home once before, again for 5 days, but then also right before the school starts.
To make sure you came back.
Very
Yep.
deviant, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, unfortunately, I'm thinking like him now. Great. But yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Right before school started, so you would come back because he
Because
knew how
he
important that was
knew,
to you.
yes, he
Mm-hmm.
knew I would come back on
Mm-hmm.
time. So that fall, I went home again for 5 days. That was after my grandfather passed away about 3 years. He passed away in the 1992. Then I never got around to see him or say goodbye to him. Um, but I went home and my mom asked me, she says, Lisa, what's going on there? What's going on at your school? I said, still working on it. You know, what am I going to say, Lisa? I mean,
I
what
know.
was I going to say? This was the, the dreaded secret that I would keep inside me.
Mm-hmm.
And she pulled me into our bedroom and she gave me a small gift, small monetary gift. Small here, relatively small, but out there it's extremely, yeah, extremely high. It was $1,000. And $1,000 was a lot of money for my mother. She was an accountant, and she didn't make a lot of money. So I said, Mom, I can take this. She says, well, you have to. You never know. I want you to have it just in case. I said, Mom, I'm supposed to help you. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to become a doctor. And she looked at me and she said, Luisa, I talked to your father recently.
Uh-oh.
And I asked him about that. And he told me, his words were, Luisa will make a very fine secretary at my
Oh.
company. And that is when the camel's back broke.
Mm-hmm.
Because it dawned on me that very moment, this is not happening. Not in my lifetime. And I just broke down, didn't say nothing else. I took the money, came home here. I returned to the United States, and in December, he left for 2 weeks to Romania to start a political party. I mean, it's interesting madness, you know. It's just like
Yeah.
looking from outside, I'm like, what was he thinking, right? So he wanted to start the political party, and he would run it. So you know, he actually was thinking to run for president again, just this delusions of grandeur.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened right as I got my American citizenship. So I got my American citizenship in December 3rd, 1993. I was by myself and I didn't really want him to be there. It was such an important thing for me. It was such an important day. I was finally recognized. I
Mm-hmm.
had a country. I was no longer nobody, belonging nowhere.
Mm. How long was it? 6 years before you became a citizen?
It's 7 years.
7 years.
Yes.
That's a
So what
long
happened
time.
was I was actually take that back. It's was supposed to be 3 years as a refugee. But then the immigration changed my file from a refugee, political asylum, to an immigrant. So now it became 5 years. But by the time you have to go through all the paperwork, was almost 7 years.
Wow.
So I came here in the United States in April 1987, and I got my citizenship in December 1993. I called my only friend, who I managed to make a friend. at work at the grocery store that I worked at the supermarket. Again, she didn't know what's going on, but I reached out to her. I said, "Hey, can you help me find the? I need to leave. I need to get out. I need to move out. I need a car. I already spoke to my manager at the grocery store to see if they can give me enough hours so I can be able to survive. And they said yes. I'm going to get another job. I already applied for another job. I said I need a car though. So she took me around. We found the car, a second hand car from a dealership. I put down some of the money that my mom gave me and applied for a loan. And thank God I got a loan because I had no credit, Lisa.
Yeah.
And I tried multiple times to get a credit card because I was like, well, I need something. And I could never get because I didn't have a credit.
Credit.
But how could you have a credit if you don't have a credit
Yeah,
card,
I
right?
know. It's that vicious cycle, right?
Yes. So what I did, and he would always say, you will never be anything without me.
Hmm.
You are a nobody.
Real common.
I got the loan. I got the car. I found an apartment, was very close, about 3 miles from my work. I put deposit for the apartment so they can hold it. Then I waited for him to come back from the States, and I presented him with a letter. I told him that I'm leaving and moved out.
How did that go, though?
Not good. I had to call the police.
I was going to say, yeah, they don't let you go easily.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's domestic violence. They don't let you go. You were his prisoner.
Well, he wanted to, he wanted to beat me up, and
Yeah.
I called the police,
Good.
and I said, if you do not let me go when they come, I will tell everything.
Mm.
So he had to not say anything, and the police said she is over 18, she's an adult, she can leave whenever she wants. So I left, and
He didn't know where you moved to, right?
no,
Oh, good. Okay.
no. Did not I he tried to bring me back. He called many times. He stopped by
Yeah.
my work, and I said, there's no way in hell you're going to have me back. And I probably saw him maybe 4 or 5 times, if that, at a restaurant. Like he would want to come and talk to me, pretty much to talk me into going back.
Mm-hmm.
My mom came here about a year after I moved out, and he met with my mom and with myself, and he actually asked my mom to remarry him. Can you believe that?
Because I bet he was thinking she would say yes, and then you guys could have that family that he promised you, and you'd come back.
And my mom told him that, says, you despise me. I despise you.
Mm-hmm.
She said to him, if there'd be just the two of us on this planet, I would never remarry you. Which I knew she was going to say that. She destroyed her entire life, Lisa.
Mm.
He destroyed her entire life. And then, if she would know that he destroyed mine.
Mm-hmm.
My mom never knew anything about this until my book came out.
That had to be hard for her to.
It was devastating.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, and just. Oh, I can't even imagine.
So where do we go from here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I moved out, took 3 jobs, and I started rebuilding. But it was so, it's like trying to rebuild a broken piece of art.
Yeah.
You patch it and you glue it and make it look good from a distance. Um,
Yeah.
So everything that what kept me going still was the dream, that idea.
Mm-hmm.
But like everything else, life gets in the way, and it started becoming a distant dream.
Hmm. So you're not
And
taking classes at this point, right? Because you're working 3 jobs. Yeah.
my mom came, like I said, about a year later. I invited her. Now that I was an American citizen, I could invite, anyone here. I invited her, and uh, when she came, I took her to Plymouth. I still lived in New Hampshire. Um, I took her to Plymouth. I took her to Boston, just show her around, and I stayed here for 2 months. But there is one point that I want to tell you about and tell your listeners because it's so, so monumental. We all have this. When we abused people, try to make something, try to reinvent ourselves, try
Mm-hmm.
to move to the other side, because when you get out, when you escape, when you break away, you got this all these dreams like, oh, I'm still gonna make it. I'm gonna recoup all these years that I missed.
Yeah.
I am going to make it my dream. And then life gets in the way.
Yeah.
And this one day, it was Thanksgiving Day, 1994. My mom and I just got out from the mass, and we're walking down the path from the chapel. It was in Manchester, New Hampshire, and there was snowing outside. It was beautiful, and all of a sudden, my mom stops, and I'm like looking. I'm like, well, I wonder what she's looking at. Well, she really wasn't looking at anything. She was looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Mom, what's going on? Says, Luisa, I want to ask you something. I said, okay. Says, what about your dream?
Mm-hmm.
What about your school? And I said, Mom, what about it? I said, don't you see what I'm doing? I said, I am drowning here. I'm working 3 jobs. I really don't think it's going to happen.
Hmm.
I just realized at that moment that something that I refused to believe, that I was letting the only thing that kept me alive all these years and saying, just letting it go.
Yeah.
And she didn't say anything else, not that day, nor the next, nothing of that sort until she left. But that question, in that moment, I realized that instead of looking at myself as a victim and hopeless and helpless, I am going to take ownership because I will believe that I will make this happen. That day, it transformed me. And just think about something that keeps us under the water forcefully,
Mm-hmm.
like keeps you from getting out. And all of a sudden, to the point that you're almost there, suffocated, dying, you're like, okay, I got to break out of this or I'm done. And then you just come out of it. And it's like an explosion. That's how it
Mm-hmm.
felt to me.
Mm.
She left in January 1995 for Romania. And a month later, I had an application to UMass Lowell to start my undergrad. Um, Started my undergrad in September 1995. I finished in 2 years. Then I applied. I took a year off to be able to study and work in research in Boston. And then I applied to medical school. I got into 5 medical schools. I applied to go to the Air Force. The Air Force gave me a full ride to go to the medical school. It's called the HPSP program. And on June 1, 2002, I graduated from medical school.
Wow. Wow. And I'm thinking going through medical school, I just can't even imagine. But then having this unresolved trauma,
Yeah,
severe trauma, and had you been working on the healing while you were going to school? Or, I mean, that's a full-time job, just going to school.
yeah. So when I got out, and that is something that um, we I mean everybody that comes out of a relationship, okay, whatever that relationship is, um, they feel so they just need someone to hang on to,
Mm-hmm.
someone that. And I listened to a few of your podcast guests, and that's something that resonated and brought us. Somebody said, one of the ladies said, sorry about that. Uh, they said, I just need someone to care. I need someone to tell me that they love me, that
Yep.
I really mean something to someone. Just like even a pet, if
Yes.
they need something. You can't, especially humans, we are such a social individuals.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot just live alone. But there is a problem. And looking in retrospect, I got into a relationship about a couple of weeks after I left. I moved out my father's house.
Mm.
It was, um, in a way, an abusive relationship. It was not physically, but it was a lot of psychological abuse. He was
Yeah.
an addict. Um, and that lasted about 4 years.
Ooh. Yeah.
Then I broke up with this person. Then about a month later, I met my first husband, and we dated for 2 years. That is like straight in through the medical school, and he wanted to marry me, and I said, "Oh no, we're not getting married. I mean, like we're not getting married, or like I want to make sure that this is working." So I waited a couple of years, then I got married. That worked for a while, and then we had the two children, but then he had an addiction. He still has it problem.
Mm.
But what I'm trying to say is, I learned that when you do not give yourself months to a couple of years between relationships,
Mm-hmm.
you always fall
Yeah.
into the same patterns.
Yeah. And that's one thing I've said on the podcast, that left unhealed, you will end up going into very similar relationships to what your family was. I did it. Almost everybody I know that I have talked to with trauma has done very similar things. It's,
Mhm.
we have this unresolved trauma. And unfortunately, we
Yeah,
end up in these relationships and you look back on it, you're like, it's the same thing I was in. Why did I do that? It seems crazy. I didn't want to be in that. So why did I do that? But it's what we know.
it's what we know, and it's that desire. It's like a beaten dog.
Yeah.
You end up going trying to find someone who really can want to pet you without an ulterior motive,
Yeah. Yeah.
without taking advantage of you.
Yeah.
And and you end up, and all they have to do is give you a good sob and story, and you'll fall for it. Why?
Exactly.
Because you're right, you have unhealed trauma. You
Hmm.
want to hear what they tell you, and they know to tell you what you want to hear.
Oh, yeah. Especially if they're a narcissist, they're really good at it. They know exactly what to say, exactly what to do. Yes. Yes. And that's why I want to emphasize this with the listeners, because, and I've seen so often, and I've been asked, why do I keep doing this? And that is why. And it's like, I just can't pick the right person. That's not true. You can't pick the right person when you're not working, when you're not healed.
Correct.
When you still haven't worked through all of that, no, you're
Yeah,
not going to pick the right person. But once you have a measure of healing, you can get into a healthy relationship. I did it.
I
I
agree.
messed up twice, and the third one I got right.
I completely agree with you because after I had a divorce with my husband, my first husband, I for the first time I went to a therapist. I started therapy because I had so many stressors coming at me because of the divorce.
Oh
It
yeah.
was a divorce. I was a single parent. I was finishing my fellowship, and I was like, oh my God, I can take this. And that's another problem, Lisa. We do not. want to take help.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because we are
Hmm.
ashamed in the misery we are in. We're
Yeah.
like, oh no, I'm fixing it. I'm containing it. I'm going to bottle it in. It's all under control.
Yeah.
No, it's not. We just have this illusion until, like you said in the previous episode, you just keep it bubbling. You just
Hmm.
keep it there, but it's going to boil over.
Hmm.
Sooner or later, it's going to boil over, and that's what happened. And I went there. I went to this therapist. I'm like, and I started sobbing because
Yeah.
I could not get over it. And I would tell him as I'm talking, I'm like, I said, this is what's going on. Look at me. I said, this is not me. I would
Yeah.
tell the
Yeah.
man, I'm like, this is just not me. I don't do stuff. I don't sob like this. I got it all together. I'm in control at all times.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But you
And
needed to sob. You needed to cry. You needed to feel those emotions and all of that. You needed to get that out. That was all stored in your body for years.
for
And
years.
and I'll tell you the reason why I kept my mouth shut, because I sit and I think about that. And it's because I'd have to tell you the whole story, and then there'd be shame there. And
Mhm.
there's things in there I don't want you to know, because somehow I would always twist it and make it my fault. And I can't tell you, so I'm not going to tell you, so I'm just going to fix it myself.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is so true. And then the present marriage, which is my second marriage, I waited. I waited 2 years. And so it happened, and I wasn't looking. And actually, I told my husband, I said, he called, and I said, you know what? Today's not a good day. Today's not a good day to talk. I said, I'm swamped with work.
Aww.
It says, well, how about tomorrow? I said, tomorrow is not much better. But the thing is, you should not be looking. You almost have to become so self steady and self
Yes.
dependent on the healing, as opposed
Yeah.
to being needy. Okay, I
Correct.
need I need to be leaning on. I need No, you don't
Yeah.
need to be leaning on anyone. You should be leaning on therapy. You should be leaning to stabilize yourself, and then
Hmm.
everything else will kind of come together.
Exactly. Exactly. My first relationship, my first marriage, I realized I married him to solve my problems. I didn't forward think it, right? It wasn't in the forefront of my mind. But when I look back on it, and the whole relationship was like that too. And I made sure that I was protected so that I didn't know stuff because I didn't want it to get rocked, if that makes sense. But
Mm-hmm.
I I definitely brought him into my life to help fix my stuff. And bless his heart, he had his own stuff. I mean, he wasn't a bad guy. We both had our stuff and we came together,
Yep.
and it wasn't a good situation. And I know we loved each other and we cared about each other, but
Mm-hmm.
we had a lot of problems and it didn't work out. And then I couldn't, I still had this thing of, oh, I want to be loved. I want to be loved. So I just jumped right into another relationship, and it ended up being a full on narcissist. And then it was then that I went, okay, I had some healing to realize that this relationship wasn't good. And like you said, I needed to take a break and step back and go, wait a minute. Okay. I'm my picker is off, and what is going on? I know it's me. What's going on? And so I did more healing, and the man I'm married to now is very different. Very, very different.
Mm-hmm. When you speak, it just so resonates. It's like a mirror.
I
And
know,
and
right?
I'm looking at like, whoa, look at that. It just sounds so like mine.
I know. And I'm sure there's a lot of stories out there like that, and it's our coping mechanism. It's just wanting to be loved. I just wanted to be loved.
That's all it was.
I just want
That's
to be
all it
loved.
was. Even with my first relationship, I'm like, I was so tired of being like a herd dog.
Yeah.
With that man that had nothing. um, I had nothing. It wasn't even hate anymore. See, it
Yeah.
was never love because I didn't know my father.
Right.
Then when it all started, it became hate.
Yeah.
But then hate turns into indifference. So
Mm,
when I left that day, I remember these are not memories. This is just reliving it. I
right.
remember I close my eyes and I see that entire scene. And he said to me, you really don't care. And I said, Father, if I would see you on the ground, I would step over you and not even look back.
Good
Now,
for
that is not
you.
hate.
That's
It's
not
just
hate.
like, no,
I'm
it's
done.
indifference. Like,
I'm done.
I'm done. So
Wow.
yes, when you get out from such a horrible, horrible long period of life, of course you want to, like anybody that even smiles at you without an
Yeah.
ulterior motive, like, oh my God, that's a normal human being that actually has some feelings for me.
I found
Whether or not,
somebody that
again,
loves
that's
me
the
or that
first.
likes me, that'll accept me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is unbelievable. And that's why I am here today. And that's why I wrote this book. And that's why I speak and give talks, because if I could just help one person's life change because of my story, I think I
Mhm.
achieved my purpose.
Yeah, and I know your story helps. I mean yeah, there's a lot of different forms of trauma that I've heard about. I have not heard one quite like this. I mean it, you know, the one that was similar is, and I thought maybe you were going to go in this direction, is human trafficking. I mean, I thought maybe that's what your father was going to do with you, is actually human traffic you, and thank God he didn't. I don't, back in the day, I guess back then they didn't really do that, but that's really
Right.
what I thought your father was going to do. So frightening. But
It
coming into
is.
another country and not knowing anybody else and not even speaking the language, not understanding the the rules and how you live in America, I can't even imagine how frightening that was. And that
And
you
in a
came out of it.
way, it is a type of trafficking. If you think it
Yeah.
was coercion,
Yeah.
it
It has
was
the
false motives. It was, complete dependence. It's the only thing is he didn't put me out there for others
exactly.
to use me for money, but I was a
Exactly.
tool to him. To me, that's in a way that's trafficking. Is like
Yeah.
internal traffic. I don't even know how to call that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. That's the only thing he didn't do, is he didn't give you to others. That's the only thing. Everything else, taking away your passport and completely controlling every move that you make. That's all, keeping you from going back home. And I can't believe he actually let you go home and took that chance. But yeah, that is a form of human trafficking. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So you let me back up though, because one part we're kind of skipping a little bit over, that I think is really critical, is your healing. So you started therapy and you started seeing this therapist and you were pouring your heart out and sharing with him what's going on and finally getting some of the emotions out. So how did your healing journey go?
The therapy with trauma victims, it's also very interesting, at least from my perspective. See, I'm an extremely strong individual.
Yes, you are.
So when I felt that I was getting a grasp on it,
Hmm.
I stopped, and we had to move because I got another job. I finished my fellowship, so now I was a staff physician specialist, and I had to move. So yes, I stopped seeing him after about probably about 3 months. Then I got to my new place. I was holding on. Then I started having some more stressors in life, between the new position, not only the new position, but then we had some, with the divorce and child custody and so forth.
Oh
So I
yeah.
see how all the stressors are
Yeah.
starting to bubble up again.
And triggering. Hmm.
So I started getting, again. I felt the need. I'm like, okay, I'm starting. I used sometimes use this term, like I'm losing grasp, and I cannot lose grasp. I mean, I have to hold on to. You know what I mean? We trauma survivors. I mean, humans in general have this propensity, but trauma survivors, once they get out from this abusive situation, they must have control.
Yes.
and
Yes.
and when we feel that it's not, we don't have control. And my point is, like, when I stop sleeping, if I start not being able to sleep well, that is my take home message that you got to do something about that,
Yeah.
because I'm going through a very slippery slope, and it affects my, my life as a parent, but also
Sure.
as a physician.
Your health,
So
everything. Yeah.
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 So in 2018, I started going again for about a year, and I started seeing this therapist, and then we moved one more time, and then I stopped seeing them. But then, and I didn't feel the need to see anybody. See, that's what happens. Once you start stabilizing,
Yeah.
you say, okay, I've got it. I've got it in
Yeah.
control.
Yep. I do the same thing. Yep. I got it from here.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But now I started the book,
Mm.
and I finished the book, and then I published the book. And as I before I published it, about 6 months before publishing it, I started feeling that I am losing grasp. And I'm like, okay, it was the book was getting to me.
Were you
Writing this
worried about
book,
it getting out? Is that what you were worried about, do you think?
no, I don't think as much that, because by now, my therapist known, my best friend knew about what's going on. Very, very few people. I would say about maybe five or six, as
Yeah.
opposed to my first 25 years that nobody knew.
Yeah.
Um, but what happened is that this book actually reopened my wounds.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I hear so
When
many people that write when they write their memoirs. Yeah, this is common.
and every time, like when I first started working on it and gathering all the data, I had a lot of journals and a lot of
Oh.
um, writing journals that I wrote through the years, and I had very good records of everything that had happened to me.
Ooh, that probably
So
helped you in your healing journey too.
yes, not as much as journaling, as much as keeping like calendars and
Yeah.
events, and what did I do and so forth. Because you can remember a lot of
Yeah.
this. But then when I was speaking with my book coach, she actually mentioned, says, you are the most documented author I've ever seen. Which makes the book so much more valuable, because you give in so
Detail.
crushing details, right?
Yeah.
But for me to get there and put it all together for her, like literally, Lisa, I brought all these boxes from the attic, and I started looking through them, and I put them
Mm.
all over the floor. And for a couple of weeks, I had to work through them after work. And let me tell you, that got to me.
Yeah.
That it almost like you take a knife, take a dagger, and then stab, but don't just stab, you turn it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would feel exhausted, like I'd feel mentally exhausted to rekindle that pain.
And part of that is, from what I understand, is you're reliving it. You're not just
Mhm.
remembering it when you're doing that, you're actually reliving it. And that's why it
Yes,
has that effect on you.
yes. I remembered every single part of that book story, how I wrote it. Just like I said to you when I left, I remember how I, lay there in the hospital. I had a major surgery in 1992, and nobody was by my side. I remember when I was still there with my father. Um, I remembered um, all that trauma, everything that happened that night, many nights, the
Mm-hmm.
abortions, everything, and it was just crushing. So after I would say last summer, so about a year and a half ago, or a year and 3 months, I decided that I have to see a therapist. But not only that, when I tried to take a break for a couple months, I needed to be back.
Mm.
And to me, that's telling me that I am just now work, truly healing,
Mm-hmm.
because I let it out, but also needing a therapist. It's something I never experienced before. Like I don't need a therapist. I did not need a therapist before. I got it all covered, right, Lisa?
Yep. Got it. No problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, I did
yeah,
that. I've done that. I've done that one. Just writing it out, though, I know is a form of therapy, right? Do you feel like that?
yes.
Yeah. Writing is such a great way to get it out of you. Because
It is
the
extremely
problem with our
hard.
trauma is when we don't speak it out, it's so much bigger. It's so
Mm,
much more damaging. It
yes,
loses its power and not always effect per se, but the power when you start speaking it out and when you start
I
putting it
agree.
out there. But it is hard. Because you were reliving it as you were rereading those. You were reliving it.
Yes, I agree with you. I used to think um, when I would go and walk in a cemetery with my cat, a nearby cemetery where we lived, to that apartment, and I used to think, I'm like, I wish I could just tell this tree what's going on. If I could just say it,
Yeah.
and that to me it's huge. Or um, I remember one case. I had a patient, um, and she came in. Her mother brought her, and this patient was not English speaking. She was 11 years old.
Mm.
She was 28-week pregnant.
Oh my
She could not
goodness.
speak any English, and she was just not feeling good, like nausea, vomiting. Okay, and they didn't know what's going on, so they took her to the doctor. Lo and behold, she was pregnant. Her uncle raped her
Mm.
the day that the mother had to go to the hospital to deliver her sister. This happened quite a few years back. But what I wanted to say because of this is that when I went and saw this patient, guess what happened in my mind, in my heart? And
Oh.
as I am listening to my staff talking about it, and again, I'm reliving it right now. I'm closing
Yeah.
my eyes and I know exactly what I was when I was seeing this patient, how this patient looked, what I was doing when I put my head down, looking at the paper that I was writing the note. And in my mind, I said, if anyone would just know. But nobody knew.
Mm-hmm. I know. Oh my God, that's awful. Mm.
Talking about reliving, you're so right.
Yeah.
These are not just memories. It's
No,
not just walking and reliving it all.
you are. It's in your mind, it's in your body. You feel it. You feel all the emotions. The thoughts come racing back that were
Mm-hmm.
going through your mind at the time. It's really bizarre. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, we're not just remembering it. We're absolutely
Mm-hmm.
reliving it. Now, what I will say, I on this end of my healing, on a lot of my healing, I can think back now because I've worked through my healing. I can think back to some of those stories that I relived and I can actually tell them and they don't have an effect on me anymore. But I excuse me, I can share the stories so that others can connect and others can understand my story. But fortunately, it doesn't with my brother, it doesn't have the effect on me at all. It's almost like I'm telling somebody else's story. Um, I'm working through I've worked through a lot with my mom. It's my dad that because I've discovered some new stuff over the last couple of years that have I get not discovered new stuff, but I guess some realizations that I have to kind of work through. Um, but yeah, it's a process. It's definitely a
It
process.
is.
And you can
And
get
I'm
to that
glad.
point where you can tell the story and you're not reliving it anymore. You're just remembering it.
And with most of it, I am there.
Yeah.
He can't hurt me anymore.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can take that and look at it from a third person,
Right.
or in third person, and be like, yeah, this happened. but
Yeah.
the past is behind me. I will let it go. What gets to me is when I see it happen to others.
Exactly. Exactly. Because as I am, I'm visual. And so as you're telling your story, I'm literally visualizing this stuff. And I'm refraining myself, but I'm having a lot of emotion inside for you and feelings about what you went through. Yeah, that's what's hard is hearing other people's stories. Hmm.
And people may think, oh, well, like you're weak, or I watch a movie and I tell my husband, I said, I can't watch this anymore.
Yep.
I said, it's just triggering me.
Yep. I've literally gotten up and walked out of the room. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't. Like, it's the weird. It takes everything in me not to run.
It's very interesting and it's bizarre. It's almost like, okay, I can take care of myself. I'm on a good place. But
Right.
seeing it done to somebody else,
Yep.
and especially children
Yep.
and young adults.
Yep.
It's when you hear about people and saying, well, he made me do this. I'm like, this child make you do that, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing in this world that will tell me that a child will trigger you to hit him or
No.
her
No.
or abuse her. That this person, this baby, it's a baby, it's a child, it's a young
Hmm.
adult. You are find someone of your own size and
Yeah.
age.
Yeah. Yeah. And then go try it on them and see what happens. Exactly. No, I am in complete agreement. And, that is something that, in what I'm doing in the podcasting, and I do a lot of research and I talk to a lot of people that I have to manage my health as well, which means I've got to make sure I have downtime because
Yes.
I don't want to say obsessed because that's a little much, but I am really locked in on this and I'm learning so much more and I'm meeting so many amazing people that it's real easy to get in there and not take a break from it. So I have to make a conscious effort to, like, if I'm doing research, to stop, get up, walk away, go get some fresh air, you know, take if I need to go lay down for a little bit because that's the hardest part for me is hearing other people's stories and just I never will understand how people can be so cruel to each other. I don't understand that. I don't understand the mindset of an abuser. Um, and I won't. But
Right.
we can't. And the part is we can't control it. That's the hardest part.
You're right. We
But
can
we can get
control
the
it.
message out.
Hmm. Yes, and that's what we're doing, and making human fellow humans aware of what, not only what happened, but what tools did we do they have in their hand to be able to change their lives. I think that is huge. Like we talked about, relationships,
Right.
like we talked about anchors. A lot of people, especially now with the social media, a lot of people are like, well, we want to have many friends. You don't need many. You just need one, and that
Yes.
one to be trustworthy,
Your
to
safe
be able
space.
to lean on them.
Yeah. Exactly. It just takes one. Exactly. I mean, I had friends. I didn't have a safe space really outside of therapy. Um, until I met my current husband. And he really is my safe space. He has seen when I've gotten triggered, when I've been triggered and and the thing that's so frustrating about when you're triggered is when before you realize that you're being triggered is you just out of control and just everything just goes wacky and you're trying to manage it and you're looking at this person and you're feeling like you're crazy, you're acting kind of crazy, but you can't explain to them what's going on, and my husband now understands me and he is my safe place and we all need that, whether it's your husband, a friend, or we all need that safe place where we can really be ourselves. And I always give him a little disclaimer before I I'm being triggered. you know but yeah, you're right, we do need one person, just we can start with one. I don't have a huge group of friends, I have a very small circle.
Yeah,
I have acquaintances, but I have my real small safe circle. It's not a lot.
I, yeah. I call them lighthouses.
Yeah, and my normal. I call my husband my normal because he wasn't raised in a home where, he was raised in a different home than me. He
Of
was
course.
a big family, very loving, very supportive, and so there's times sometimes where I'm confused because I don't, my normal is being abused since I was far back as I can remember. So
Wow.
when something comes up, sometimes I don't know, is my behavior normal or is theirs? I can't tell. And I'll go to him and I'll explain. And he's like, and he'll clarify it for me. We all need that person in our life.
Yes, especially when you don't have a point of reference, like you said. And I consider myself blessed that I had that those 18 years of my life that I
Yes.
had a safe space, that I had a point of reference. I mean, it is
Yeah,
huge when you, like you said, when you are abused and neglected since as far as you can remember, what is your point of reference?
exactly. Exactly. I mean, that's probably what really saved you. That is what really
Hmm.
strengthened you, is having that mother figure in your life that was so strong and gave you 18 solid foundational years so that you could survive, unfortunately, this situation and come out thriving. I mean, look at you today. I mean, it's wonderful.
Yeah, well, it is a work in progress.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
and I have to say, to your audience and everybody, I say, bear no mistake. You cannot call this, it's done. I don't think we could ever be done, Lisa. That healing, the healing
No.
that happens because it's um, it's like the to me it's like a whack-a-mole. You just calm one down and another one comes out,
Yeah,
and you have to learn how to kind of juggle them and prioritize and say, this is not worth it, and whatever is important to you, you hold on to. Whatever is not important to you, you must let go, because if you
exactly.
don't, it just becomes overwhelming, especially as we get older. I always tell my son to say, just learn to pick your battles. In the
Yes,
beginning, everything matters, but by the end, not many things matter anymore.
that is so
My
true.
health, my family, and really my work. So I have a place to live and a roof over my head, but everything else,
It works
what?
out. It's true. It's true. And when you chip away at all that stuff that really doesn't matter, and you get down to the foundation of what really matters and what matters to me. And I had to sit down and do, a few years of figuring that out. I didn't have an identity. My identity was gone. And in 2016 is when I realized I don't have an identity. I have no idea who I am.
And it's so true. What you just said, my therapist said to me, he says, when you came here a year and a half ago, your identity was your shield, and your shield was work. All you could talk about was how good of a doctor you are, a doctor, how well you take care of your patient,
Yeah.
because that is my armor.
Right.
That was the only thing that I could hang on to. Everything else wasn't, right?
Yep. Yep.
And then
Exactly.
as I started healing, she's like, yeah, you're starting to talk about things that truly matter, your health,
Yeah.
your family. Not that they weren't there, but like at the first sign of instability, I'll be like, okay, let me grab into my work,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Because you can go hide in it. You can get lost in it, and you don't have to deal with the
Hmm.
emotions and everything that's going
Yep.
on. Yeah, that was your go-to. Other people do drugs, some do alcohol, but yeah, that was your go-to. Yeah.
Hmm. It was the
Yeah.
only thing that was stable in my life,
And
really.
it was your
That
dream.
and my running. That's all. That's
Yeah.
the only two things I could be like, have full control over. How good of a doctor I will be, and how well I take care of my patients. I mean, to the point that used to be my obsession.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get that, and that is so unfortunately common. And so now what you're doing is you're bringing balance back into your life so that yes, you have work, but you have your family, you have your health, you have you, so that it's a much calmer, peaceful life.
More rewarding too.
So let me ask you one last question. What would you like to leave our listeners with?
3 questions and a quote.
Okay.
So, 3 questions that I guide myself and I have guided myself through all these years
Mm-hmm.
are: what did you learn?
Yeah.
What did I learn? I learned that I cannot undo my past. I cannot undo what he did to me. But what I can do, I can let go and move on. What drives me? It's my mission, my goal, my dream. So find your dream, grab onto it, and don't let it go until accomplished.
True.
And what's in my rainbow? On one hand, we have our doubts and our handicaps. And in the other hand, we have our amazing abilities, because we all have amazing abilities.
Yes.
Choose wisely, because I chose my abilities to be able to move on and make a life out of my future.
Mm-hmm.
And my quote is: embrace the possibilities, overcome, and influence the world.
Mm.
It's your world.
Yeah. You're right. We do have possibilities. We have abilities. Sometimes they're buried so deep we just can't even see them. So you're right. Look for them because they're there. You just have to unbury them sometimes. That's what I had to do.
Yeah.
Beautiful. This is this has been great, and thank you for sharing your story. I know it's that's a tough one, and it was a lot. I can't
Yeah.
imagine. I just can't imagine going through what you went through. And I have people saying that to me, and but it's true. It's just I can't imagine being in another country, not knowing anybody, and then having a father abuse you the way he abused you.
It was a lot.
Yeah. But here you are today.
But
So
here I
thank
am.
you. Thank you again for sharing your story. And if our audience wanted to reach out to you for anything, how could they reach out to you?
You can find me on the internet. I have 2 websites. I have my literary and platform website. It's Dr. Luisa with double S K.com. And my medical practice, it's telemedmfm.com.
And we'll have that for the audience as well so they can
Mm-hmm.
reach out to you.
And you can find my book, Push Them Breathe, Trauma, Triumph, and the Making of an American Doctor, as a hardcover on Amazon and Barnes & Noble's audiobook, and also as an ebook. The audiobook, the foreword, and there is a song there that he was sang on my birthday, on that one birthday.
Mm.
Uh, and it's in Romanian, and it's sang by me, and so is the foreword. It's read by me, and then the intro and the outro. It's the song is put together by my son, my youngest son. So
Oh,
yeah, it's very special.
that is really special. How sweet. You got a lot of
So you
support from your
can
family.
get in touch with me through my website. I have emails there. I have a newsletter that comes out every 3 weeks. You have to sign up for it. But I am very, very reachable, and I will be more than happy to, answer your email, but also help you. If you have a question, you don't have to, pay for a package or anything. 'Cause, free, good deeds are free, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dr. Luisa, for sharing your story and, and you know, offering to help others because that's what we're here. And that's part of the name of my podcast, Hand in Hand, is that we all coming together hand in hand to help each other. That's what we're here to do, is to support each other. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. And I really appreciate doing this with me, appreciate walking hand in hand with me. That takes a lot of bravery and strength to, like you said, not only to put your life out there for others to hear or see, but also to be able to have a podcast like this
Yeah.
and have guests like I am, because it's a lot. It's very deep. It's very personal. and all fosters the same will to for others to use so they can better themselves.
Exactly. 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 I didn't have this when I was going through my early healing years. And I know if I had something like this, it would have helped me on my healing journey a lot faster. And that's the number one reason why I do it, is to help others shorten their suffering.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
That's what we want. I mean, I'd actually love to go out of business, frankly. No more trauma. No more trauma.
Yeah,
That's the goal. So,
wouldn't that
but
be,
thank
and
you.
then isn't that the truth?
Yeah. Yeah. Just put me out of business, please. Well, thank
God
you.
bless. Thank you.